Hello, this is the Ethical Dilemma, a concept map. I begin with massaging the dilemma. It's to get the job done in the most efficient manner related to postmortem care, or taking the time to treat a unique life that has just passed with reverence and respect before performing postmortem care. The story behind it all. A patient had quietly died in a long-term nursing care facility while she was laying in her bed in a room that she shared with another patient who had dementia. The patient was being cared for by a CNA who had found her. The patient's postmortem care had been carried out in a perfunctory manner. She was efficiently cleaned up, changed into clean clothing, her hair was brushed, and her eyes were closed, all in preparation for family members and visitors. The dilemma that I was faced with was to try to decide between the expectation to prepare the patient's body as quickly as possible, because there were so many other patients to attend to, or to treat the patient with reverence and respect, even in post-mortem. By closing the dividing curtain, refraining from casual talking, seeing if there were any patient or family requests put in place, taking a silent moment to reflect on the patient's unique life, covering the patient completely with a sheet, and removing the patient's roommate to give the postmortem patient privacy, or the family privacy. A study involving nursing students and postmortem care highlights that there is indeed a need for increased training regarding death in the healthcare setting, and a special need for training in end-of-life care that addresses ethical issues that might arise, as well as teaching coping strategies for the impact of death on nursing students. This all led me to question whether or not it was appropriate for the CNA to be tasked with a job that requires sensitivity, discretion, and in some cases, following the personal and cultural wishes of the patient, thus supporting the postmortem patient's autonomy. Provision 4 in the ANA Code of Ethics does address the assignment and the delegation of nursing activities and tasks as an ethical issue. Now, if delegation is an ethical matter, then I believe it is appropriate to question the ethical decision whether or not to have a CNA perform postmortem care. Additionally, the International Council of Nurses Code of Ethics states that, quote, nursing care is respectful and of unrestricted by considerations of age, color, creed, culture, disability, or illness, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, politics, race, or social status. Keeping this all in mind, I would like to add in life or in death to be completely inclusive. So who are the stakeholders? It is the nurse, perhaps, who is caring for a large number of patients and taking the time for respectful postmortem care would be too much for her to safely provide care to her other patients who are living. Is this the reason why the nurse might delegate the task to a CNA? Or is it those who are in charge of finances at the institution who feel that they cannot afford specialized training in the care of the postmortem patient, or they feel like they can't afford more nurses to be hired? Thirdly, could it be systematically embedded in our culture, which in general has a difficult time coping with the impact of death? It can leave an individual frustrated, angry, and impotent because of the irreversibility and universality of death. Death can confront an individual or a community with their own fears of death, and it is a reminder of their own fragile human fragility. In the context of the ethical dilemma, it is certainly more palatable to quickly move on and not internalize a patient's death nor their needs for care after death. The options. I could begin by researching the legal rights of postmortem patients, and more specifically, their rights to privacy, confidentiality, and advance directive wishes being carried out. I could then build my argument from a legal standpoint and present that change needs to be implemented based on current laws. This option is potentially powerful. Hypothetically speaking, though, if law sets a precedent and an institution is obliged to change their policies to reflect the current law, choosing this option would require a lot of research and might require the guidance of a lawyer. A second option is that I could investigate the institution's current policies regarding postmortem care and postmortem rights. If what I witnessed was not aligned with institutional policy, I could file an anonymous complaint. Choosing this option could potentially change behavior throughout the institution by making an example of a certain CNA's behavior. I hesitate choosing this option because I have reluctance to initiate a complaint against a peer. My third option would be to propose the adoption of the pause. It's described as, quote, a way of ritually marking the death of a patient by taking a moment for silent reflection after their passing, unquote, and could, quote, bring back the humanity that has somehow been lost in the technology of modern medicine, end quote. This option could help institute a cultural shift within the facility. It does not address all of the issues of the dilemma, but it does open the dialogue for further conversations. The choice to act. Provision 1 of the ANA Code of Ethics states that, quote, nurses practice with compassion and respect for the inherent dignity, worth, and unique attributes of every person, end quote. It does not explicitly include the postmortem patient, but I am interpreting it as an implied inclusion. When I reflect on Provision 1, I am led to choose the proposal to adopt the pause. The articulation and assertion of values described in Provision 9 also inform my decision by supporting my action to propose the pause. This, in effect, is an articulation of my personal values with regard to post-mortem patient care. To implement my choice, I would begin by going to the nurse manager and propose an in-service education opportunity where I would create a teaching plan about the pause and how it has been successfully implemented in many other institutions. I would then invite discussion on the topic. To reflect back. As I reflect on the ethical dilemma process, I realize that I personally prefer not to accuse, vilify, or condemn. Although it is not always beneficial to stay within one's comfort zone, I feel that my choice to propose the pause would be the most feasible within my time limits and my financial means. In addition, adopting the pause would be working towards a positive institutional change and would psychologically benefit patients to know that they too would be treated with dignity when it was their time to pass. Most of all, regarding each individual as having worth and dignity, even in death, aligns with my personal values.